Hello, Metatopia. I am Avonelle Wing, Darren Watts, and we're going to talk a little bit about how to engage with Metatopia this year. Okay, Darren, are you there? Because we're live.
I am. Sorry. Yeah. No, I am. But a moment my video was my audio was doubled up. I couldn't hear who was which there.
Okay, so we're shaking out the bugs. Thank you for bearing with us, Twitch.
Right, exactly.
Do you want to introduce yourself, Darren?
I'm Darren Watts. I am I run the panel and seminar track here at Metatopia. And I'm also an RPG designer, writer, editor, and a bunch of other stuff. But my love for Metatopia is large. This is my baby of a con, so.
So we usually do this in a great giant room where we have everybody introduce themselves and tell us why they're here and one thing about what they're looking to get out of Metatopia. So if you're watching us in the chat room, please feel free to chime in with those things and we will try to answer your questions.
Right.
We're going to start with talking a little bit about the ethos behind how Metatopia is put together. Darren, do you want to talk a little bit about how you put the panel track together and what you look for and like what people can expect from that?
Sure. There's a couple of different kind of categories to how we've put this together now because Metatopia has been going on long enough to have kind of like built up a plan for this. We have an entire set of the schedule that is devoted to what we call the 101 panels that are sort of like introductions for people who are just breaking into the industry, who are just kind of like getting started as designers or doing something else in the game industry. And it's to kind of like explain the basics of how everything works, right? It's how to interact with publishers, how to make pitches for your games, how to deal with printers, how to deal with, like the legal aspects of setting up a company, that sort of thing. And that makes up a, sizable portion of the panel track, especially the first day or two, so that we can kind of like get those out of the way. And then the rest of the panel group is either kind of like dedicated, we have a bunch of stuff that is dedicated to community building, in the tabletop industry and kind of, like bringing people together, discussing kind of like community-oriented concepts like safety in games or, bringing in disenfranchised groups into the game industry. And then we have kind of a third set of panels that are dedicated specifically to kind of like the nuts and bolts of game design, where we talk about, they'll drill down into a specific topic about how to write a certain kind of like game, how to design for a certain effect in your game, how to, make your game interact with a live audience, right? There's a number of panels dedicated for this panel in particular, for this year in particular, dedicated to moving online, how to do playtesting online, that sort of thing. That's kind of like a front of mind for everybody this year.
It's an important part of the Metatopia ethos from the ground up is to be very responsive and to pay attention to what it is people are asking and what they need from us at any given time, and to make sure that we're adapting and responding to that.
Right. What we've built this out of right now, the way it looks today is based on having listened to people over the last 8 or 10 years about how this should be put together. And that's always a moving target, right? That's always, like what are people concerned about? We try to respond as quickly as we can to, concerns of our clients, basically, of the people that we're doing this for.
Like the year that we had 7 different how does math actually work panels, because that's the thing people were asking about.
Right.
So one of the things that's really important in the Metatopia design thought, right? For us, this is very much like game design, where we're iterating and creating a new version every year and crafting it around the community. One of the things that's really important to us is the lowering barriers of entry and making sure that we're acknowledging players as valid and practitioners as valid, and removing the idea that you have to have a certain type of credential to be involved in the Metatopia community. Right. For people who are not on panels, we have a couple of methods to connect with the community. There's a Metatopia Facebook fans page that I will make sure gets mentioned on the Discord. We have a Discord server. So let's talk a little bit. There's in addition to the panel content, which is kind of our professional development, community development programming, we have 2 other arms to Metatopia this year. And every year these arms exist, but we've had to really codify them and nail them down.
We put them in different places, right?
They have to be in different places. We can't just smush everybody into the hotel.
Right.
So I'm going to talk first about the Envoy Gateway. If you are joining us now and you go register on the website for Metatopia, you're going to get an invite to the Envoy Gateway, and it's going to drop you into something that you're going to be like, what is this? This is not a convention experience. This looks nothing like the Hyatt Morristown. We know. We're sorry. Work on wearing your mask. We'll get there. But what will happen is you're going to land on the Envoy Gateway, and there's a big blue banner at the top that says Metatopia attendees start here. Click on that, and that's going to drop you into a step-by-step guide that has been written as an experience to talk you through how to get to the Discord, which is where the social stuff is happening. And we'll come back and talk about like what you can expect over on the Discord. It talks you through how to set up playtests if you're a professional. It talks you through how to join playtests if you're a player who wants to participate in that part of Metatopia. And so we've really, the Discord exists and is where the social stuff is happening. The playtesting side of things is happening on the Gateway.
And so we're clear, the playtesting thing is still open. If you want to start now with that process, you can still be putting up playtests. It's not like Metatopia where you needed to do that weeks in advance, right? Like that's a live open program right now.
That is an excellent point. The hardest thing for me this October was usually I'm on the phone all day, every day with designers, hearing what you're working on and getting you set with a schedule. And that just, I didn't have that underpinning this October. It was very, very disconcerting. So a little bit about the social side of things. The Discord is set up with rooms for you to come and chat. There's a con suite where we're getting to watch emergent culture happen, which is kind of cool, where people have decided that that's where you talk about what you're eating today and bemoan the absence of Morristown's cuisine.
And drinks.
And drinks. We have a lobby where people are introducing themselves and talking about who they are and what they do. If you're looking to commission freelancers to do things, they are posting in a looking for work channel. If you're a designer and you're looking for playtesters, there is a looking for playtester spot too. So we have folks who are in the Twitch, take pity on us because we're used to doing this with a big audience and we usually have 100 people in this space. Just to talk a little bit about what's different about Metatopia this year, in part because we've got such a global audience. Darren, do you want to talk a little bit about what your vision was with the panel track as far as bringing in people that we don't ordinarily have access to and some of the things you're really excited about?
Obviously, I mean, we all desperately miss being together as a group, being all in the, in the same place in the Morristown Hyatt and having these amazing discussions. And we weren't going to have that this year, but we decided to kind of like try as best we could to make lemonade out of these lemons and take full advantage of the fact that we didn't need to actually get everyone to New Jersey for this to happen. And so we spent a lot, we kind of concentrated on making invitations to people who are not on the East Coast of the United States. That means, getting people from other parts of the U.S. and even more so, getting people globally. We have, a large number of European designers. We have a large number of Asian designers. We have a sizable group, I believe, from Mexico that is here for this that we've never been able to get before. That just logistically was not plausible. And I hope that this has now become a permanent feature of Metatopia, right? That like there will always be more of an online presence from this version forward, basically, so that we can keep that global community, like around and interacting with us, even when this moves back to actually existing in a physical place in New Jersey. That we can maintain these contacts and maintain having this kind of sense of a global community of game designers. So.
We have a panel on Saturday that I'm really excited about. I sat in on the recording. We did pre-recordings for some of the people that are in different time zones about Asianness in RPGs. And they talk about how both the problematic and positive ways that American audiences engage with Asianness. there is a panel that is airing today at 4:30, that is about the design scene in France. And Jason Pitt conducted that entire panel in French and then subtitled it for us. There are conversations. There is a conversation on, I believe, Sunday about all of this is on the schedule, which is on the main double exposure page. And I'll make sure that the link goes out in the chat in just a moment. There's a how to do project management panel on later this week that is being broadcast in Spanish. And then when we rebroadcast it, it'll be subtitled. And so we're working really hard to invite people in to interact in the ways that they are most comfortable with. And again, it's that lowering barriers to entry, inviting more people to the table, diversifying our access to people's thoughts and where they're
and hopefully people's access to each other, right? I mean, the entire point of building this community is not just that you interact with us directly and back out, it's that you can talk to each other as well, so.
Oh, I certainly hope so. I'm really excited. A lot of the panelists that have done pre-records are actually going to join us on the Twitch channel to do watch parties.
Right.
So they didn't have to be crisp and at their best at 3 a.m. their time, but so that they can be present and engaged. And I certainly hope that they stick around and join the Discord. The other place that a lot of these conversations are happening is over on Twitter. So searching for hashtag Metatopia will get you some of these conversations and connect you with people that are participating.
Right.
We have over 800 registered attendees for a show that I wasn't sure anyone was going to show up for. Like I was like, we're going to put our heart and soul into this.
Right around what our live number was last year for doing this, right? If I remember correctly, we had 800.
It's more than 150 more people.
Well, there you go. So,
representing at least 20 different countries. Yesterday, every time I turned around, Vinny was shouting out a new country name. He was like, Sweden! We got Sweden! Hey, we got Greece today! And so there is a tremendous audience out there, and I certainly hope, if you're listening, that you decide to stay sticky, join the Discord, jump into the conversation, join us on Facebook over in the Facebook fans group that is not run by me. I am not the person in charge over there, so if there's approvals, somebody else will have to help with that.
If you take a look at the schedule, you'll see there are events going on constantly, right? Like whenever you are free, whenever you can kind of like duck in and say, you know, it's like, hey, I wonder what's going on at Metatopia right now. The panel schedule, we have 3 channels of panels like this going on that are staggered every half an hour, right? Like each panel is an hour long and then has kind of like a half-hour break at the end of that channel for our tech people to kind of like reset and get themselves put together. So a new event on the panel track goes off every half an hour throughout the day, starting tomorrow. Today is actually a lighter one for it because we're still getting ourselves set up, and Thursday is not usually part of the Metatopia programming schedule, but we have so much awesome content that we've kind of spilled over into Thursday as well. So.
This morning, I'm like, why does this feel so long? What is going on?
This show takes forever. Oh, right, it is. Yeah, oh well. But yeah, so beginning on Friday morning, literally you can turn us on all day, and, you know, like a new event is starting every half an hour, leaving aside all of the side events that are not part of the panel track, right? I mean, there's the freelancer get-togethers, there's the zine program that Ninth Level is running, there's, you know, like the... all the different, you know, schedule things that are happening on Discord. There's the Artist's Alley and that sort of thing. There is always something happening here at this show, pretty much, you know, more or less starting now. So. Abby, I think I lost you. Have you guys got her? Okay. I was going to say, well, pardon us, everybody, for, you know, we'll do a bit of the shuck and jive here while we wait for our technical problems to get solved.
Things that don't happen. Actually, I'm here. This is kind of like me getting an emergency call on site at a con and having to disappear from a stage. Sorry, we just wanted to replicate that very real experience for you.
Absolutely.
We got a question from the Twitch channel, which was, where can you find, is it possible to watch some of the panels on demand? The answer is that once they've aired, because obviously we're doing them live, you can go to the individual Twitch channel to find them. There's 3 of them, and you can go to the Envoy Gateway Guide to get the address for those. And you can watch them on the Twitch channel, and then we're going to be also then moving them over to YouTube. Twitch says that they'll hold them for 14 days. So you've got plenty of time to go and watch them after they've aired.
To do them here, right, yes.
Yeah. So for example,
each channel is named after one of the rooms in the hotel. If you are familiar with the way that we run these on site at the Hyatt, you have the Concord, you have Boardroom 1 and Boardroom 2. Those are the 3 channels that events are running on.
Yep. And so obviously this is Dex Boardroom 1, and you know that because you're here. Dex Concord is the main stage, and then Dex Boardroom 2 is the other slightly, the room that is usually under the stairs, right?
Right. Yep.
So yeah, you'll be able to catch any of those afterwards. And we're going to keep them up on YouTube for at least a year so that people can access them. Past Metatopias. Let's talk about where to find content. Maybe there's something you're curious about that's not on the schedule. Darren, if they want to find that info, where do they go?
To Jason's site, which I don't have here. Do you have his?
I'll find it.
Yeah.
So tell people what it is.
Jason has maintained a back, like archive, basically a library of live events from cons that is more than half of it is dedicated to Metatopia. He's also taken stuff from other conventions around the world. I think he's got some from Big Bad and some from Breakout and a couple of other cons. But more than half of the content on Jason's site is Metatopia panels going back, I believe, 8 years, I think, at this point.
Oh, it's
yeah, and it's well over 100 hours of more, Metatopia panels. Now, those are all audio only, unfortunately. We're not videotaping them for most of the time that those were happening. But we do have, a very high-quality audio recording of 100 hours, at least, of Metatopia programming going back. Plus, like I said, there's 30 hours each of, 2 or 3 other really good cons as well. So,
right. So, yeah, the title on it is the RPG panel cast. Don't let that scare you off, board and card people. It is Metatopia covers the whole gambit of things, and Jason doesn't throw out the board gaming or card gaming content.
Right. I think when he began it was supposed to originally be only about RPGs, but he has long since abandoned that idea that it is definitely any kind of tabletop game.
Right. So that is actually an interesting point. If you look at the panel schedule and the way that we put it together, you will see that there are actually bands of, we try to make sure that there's some board gaming, card gaming, designer stuff. So things like what makes a good rule book, and LARP stuff and RPG stuff, and that it's not stacked up against each other. So you're not going to see that there's 3 in a row where you can't make everything that's specifically talking to board gamers. But also we try to make sure that things like how to pitch your game, that we've included representation from each of the realms so that it's universally useful for anybody that's in analog games, not just somebody who is.
Yeah, all of the manufacturing panels and that sort of thing of how to get bits and parts and that sort of thing. Also talk about how to print books if you're in the RPG side, or how to get PDFs made if you're in the, indie publishing side or whatever. All of these things are, every panel assumes that you might be coming from any part of analog gaming, and tries to provide content, that's relevant to what you're doing.
So in the conversations that you had and in shaping the schedule this year, I know what I saw as kind of the themes and the cultural gestalts that were happening. What were you seeing as the themes?
Well, like I said, the first and most obvious was that so much of this has moved online. How do we function that way, right? And that was both from a social point of view, of kind of like a social management point of view, of how do we, keep a community functioning that is only interacting through chats and that sort of thing. How do we, manage a game that is being run entirely online, and then also. Kind of running in parallel to that are here is all of the new technology right, that has emerged or that is being taken advantage of. If you're not familiar with it, we have like panels about how to use Roll20, and we have panels about how to publish PDF only stuff, etc. That are all kind of running simultaneously, right? That are the things that have grown suddenly within our community in importance because we're all kind of like stuck here at home. So that was like the first and most obvious one. It's like I said, it's the front of mind for everybody right now. Is like, how am I getting my game in front of people to play online? How am I getting a product out the door and in front of the people who will hopefully be interested in buying it and playing it? When I can't leave my house, right? Or when I'm only under certain circumstances can I leave my house.
If you were prototyping and playtesting and you want a 101 on how to engage with Tabletop Simulator on that front of how are we doing this online, there at noon there's a seminar on taking your game to Tabletop Simulator so that you can
specifically right, yeah,
and then actually play it. It's interesting because I hadn't even connected that the how to publish PDF was part of that. What do we do now that we're stuck at home? But you're right. There's quite a depth of the content that just addresses this world is weird. How do we engage with it? What do we do?
Right. I mean, there's an entire as a product basically that PDF publishing specifically has a specific kind of like enhanced appeal to people who can't get out to their store on a regular basis anymore, right? Or whose unfortunately whose store is shut down for the duration, or I mean, it's a very difficult situation out there for retailers right now. And while we are 100% supportive of trying to keep those stores open, on the other hand, if you literally can't get there or if they're closed, PDF products may be, like what you need to do in the meantime to help keep the publishers moving, right? So
exactly.
But we also, on the other hand, do have, we continue to have, particularly in the 101s sections, we have panels that are still kind of like assuming that some level of reality is eventually going to return, right? Some level of normality will come back, so that we do still have panels about working with the 3-tier distribution system or that sort of thing, on the assumption that, maybe next year the 3-tier distribution system will actually be working the way it's supposed to, right? So,
Well, and also on Sunday, one of the last panels of the convention is designing for 2021 from two top-notch retailers who are going to talk about what, as you're putting your packaging together, as you're creating products going into 2021, what do you need to be thinking about? What matters to them? Is it that they want things that are really easy to put in a shipping box because they're doing a lot of fulfillment that way? Is it that they want things that are completely durable so that when they throw it in a shopping bag and thrust it out the door to the masked gamer on the other side, that it doesn't take any damage? What does that look like and what do they need from you? And that's evolving, but we've got one retailer from each coast coming to talk to us about that.
Right.
One of the themes that I saw was the how to pitch. The whole ninth level games is running a pitch workshop today. There are several programming pieces over the course of the rest of the weekend about how to pitch yourself, how to pitch your game. And so I feel like there's also being a lot of attention on the idea of maybe we don't want to take on publishing this ourselves right now. The world is on fire, and that sounds like a lot of moving pieces.
Right.
But other people have these systems worked out. How do we get their attention, and how do we engage with their systems?
Right. It is obviously it's always a terrifying step to move into self-publishing on your own. And it's not for everybody. Not everybody is cut out for it. Not everybody is interested in it. It's not the best idea for everybody. So, like helping people figure out how to work with existing companies, how to sell your game to somebody else who will take care of all of that awful stuff for you so that you can just go about making games, which is all what you got into the business to do in the first place, is kind of that's an evergreen topic as a general rule, but we have a particularly good set of them, I think, this year. I made a point with this one, since we had the advantage of, once again, not having to get everybody to New Jersey for the show. One of the things I very much wanted to do, Metatopia has obviously a very strong reputation in the story game and LARP communities and is not necessarily as well known in more kind of like trad RPG circles. And it was very much a kind of like a conscious effort that I made out to reach out to designers and publishers who came from that, who had probably heard of Metatopia and had never kind of like quite really included it in their universe of cons that they attend, that this was a thing that they could do this time. And in bringing those people in, and I think we have a fabulous list. I'm delighted by the number of people who are, the number of industry professionals who are here for the first time this weekend. I found myself over and over again in discussions with people about what that difference was, right? About like what it is, what defines the differences between story games and trad RPG and, high trust and low trust and the different kind of like sub concepts within that. And many of those conversations turned into panels. I think we've got a set of like 5 or 6 panels that all kind of like are addressing those kind of like sub-communities within RPG design and the ways that they can interact with each other, right? And like what it is that like still can be done to kind of like do crossovers between them, and what traditions can learn from each other in that, between OSR and story games and trad games, etc. And my ongoing personal bugaboo that indie is not in fact a term that you should use for any of these things. Indie is how you sell games, not how you make them. But if you want to hear me go on and on about that, I think I'm doing that at least twice over the course of this weekend. So,
one of them is Saturday night, I believe, at
right,
the end of the night,
and I think another one's on Sunday. Yeah.
So one of the things that occurs to me is that part of what we were trying to overcome with the Discord, and one of the things that I'm really hoping to encourage people to connect with, is that ordinarily at Metatopia, every designer gets a high test where we seed their table with other designers or experts that are chewing on the same things that they're working on. If they're at the point where they're trying to publish a big map drawing game with lots of pieces, we might put a manufacturer and a cartographer at the table with them to talk about what that looks like. And so the structure of a physical Metatopia has all of this built-in cross-pollination, where we get to actually say, I think this person and this person need to at least connect with each other. Even if they don't become bosom buddies, they at least interact with each other, sit at the same table. We don't have that benefit this year. So there's a little bit more of us needing to ask our participants to join the conversation, talk on social media about who you're talking to and who you're learning from, invite them into your conversations. This is going to have to happen asynchronously, and it's going to have to happen in the different places that Metatopia is happening online. Think of your Twitter feed as walking over to the Famished Frog with a bunch of friends, and hanging out in the Discord as hanging out and tipping Nancy at the bar at Metatopia. But without those gaming tables to foster those connections in a way that is invisible, usually to the attendee, we really are inviting people to mindfully engage in making sure that if you're a story game designer, come and hang out on the Discord with some of the people that have been doing trad RPGs for forever and have some perspective and have maybe solved some of the problems that you're fighting with.
And vice versa, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
And once again, we tried to do that. I think you will find that even more so than usual, our panel lists, our panel kind of like collections, each group that is put together, there was a conscious effort to kind of like seed different combinations as much as possible, because we really wanted to see these people talk to each other, right? Like we really wanted to see exchanges of ideas between these different communities,
and for their fans to
and promote that. Exactly right. So if you've come to a panel because you really want to hear what Meg Baker has to say about something, you'll also get to hear the other interesting people on the panel. Or if you've come to a panel because Ken Haidt is always entertaining and he's running a panel, well, he'll be on with some really interesting people to interact with. So we're hoping to bring those kind of like fan groups together as much as bring together the actual creators themselves. So
so we got a question in the Twitch about finding somebody with developer experience for Board Game Arena. I think that the way to approach that is to post in the looking for work. I know that Board Game Arena is the one platform that we have that I personally, through Envoy, Double Exposure's other arm, where we're helping staff conventions for publishers that are having booths at virtual conventions. Board Game Arena is the one that we have the least engagement with, and I think that's just because their model is they're not pushing themselves as much right now as the other two. But I think in the looking for work, and I'll put out over social media that if somebody is looking to connect, that they would be good to pop into there.
Right.
Talk a little bit, Darren, about what you, or maybe that this may be a me question, this may be a you question. The looking for work channel on the Discord. I'm really excited by it because it gives people a chance to kind of shout out what they're working on.
Right, and that's pretty much how it started so far. I haven't really seen very many people post like job offers there yet, or job, something that they're looking for specifically. It's been people kind of going on and saying, "Hey, I am a freelancer. I do this." Right, and here are examples of my work. Here's my portfolio. Here's this. Here's that, or whatever. I'm letting the world know that I'm out there for it, and I think that's probably where most of the energy of that group is going to come from. Are the people going out there, and then people who are looking. We should be, actively trying to encourage them to say, if you have a need for something, if you have a need for assistance in some area, if you have writing that needs doing, if you have art that needs doing, if you have marketing that needs doing, whatever it is, that's the place to go look. Start reading through those because we have some phenomenally talented people making themselves available to be hired here. So,
right.
Don't miss that if that is a, if there's anything in your business, in your line that you have a person-sized hole in your operation, that's one of the first places you should look. So
one of the things I'm really excited about by bringing such a diverse group of people together too, is that if you are consciously aware that there's a homogenous tendency to your staff, sure. You have the ability to bring in people that are nothing like you, because we've got people from almost every continent chiming in over there, and people who aren't English speaking who are chiming in, or not English as a first language. And so if you've said, but I don't know how to hire people who aren't like me, how do I do that?
Right.
Looking for work channel. When they were recording the Asianness in RPGs panel, one of them made the point that the exchange rate is very favorable hiring from hiring overseas in some circumstances. And that's a good way to introduce that diversity in a way that isn't forced, because you've hung out at Metatopia together.
Right, exactly.
So, sorry, I actually am still running the convention while we do this, so I've got all this flashing up in front of me. So one of the other things to think about is that if you are listening to us, you have something valuable to add as a playtester. Even if you're like, but I'm just a player, I'm not a designer, or maybe I only design RPGs. There is still value to you jumping in as a playtester. So pop over to the Envoy Gateway, give it a look, sign up for something, right? The designers are really excited to have you involved. It's not the same sort of matchmaking and handholding that we do for a normal Metatopia. There was just metaphysically no way that we could. That takes so much energy and is really an entire month of our lives. And this year, that month went to tackling Discord and OBS.
Right, exactly. Learning how to do this part
has kicked our butts. Just frankly, Andy and Mickey and Vinny and Darren and the level 9 team, we have, I think, 9 people on staff running the tech side of this. Running 3 channels simultaneously is way more ambitious than I understood when we were like, well, here's our vision.
When we first had an idea of what we were going to do, how we were putting on the show. Yes, that's certainly true. Absolutely, yeah. Shout outs to all of those people involved. But it's true, like I said, that's the Envoy gateway. Definitely, I think the publishers are embracing it. I think we've got a lot of designers over there who are offering stuff, and they really need playtesters over there, right? So I mean, there's right now, I think it's there aren't that many people attached to the gateway who don't have a game themselves over there, and I think they're mostly all over there just playtesting each other's stuff right now, which is great but they need more people. So, like physically, do get over there and check that part out, because that is obviously one of the key parts of the Metatopia experience, is the opportunity to get your game in front of people who are not your regular test groups for this, but who have a very strong background in games in general. You have an enormous information, pool available to you, having your games play tested at Metatopia. So, let's make sure we're providing that to the people who are doing it online this year for it and going forward, that becomes, a new part of the show, that we can, provide that on a regular basis. So don't let them down.
The other really cool thing about it is, as a registered Metatopian, you are going to continue to have access to the gateway in perpetuity. Those designers are going to continue. Yeah, those designers continue to have access. And so we can turn this into a rolling thing where if somebody has a Kickstarter coming up, they can post online saying, hey, Metatopians, I'm posting a new playtest, and put it on the gateway. You can register. The gateway has such really cool features built in, like reminders saying you've got a playtest coming up. You're supposed to be in this place at this time. We are able to push out announcements to people based on things that they're doing or things that they've interacted with. If you realize that you're completely boggled by all of the technology and you're like, I just need someone to hold my hand, you can post in. I actually have a thread there that is, I'm lost, help me. And when I'm not on camera, I'm monitoring that thread constantly and providing answers. Someone asked about how to get to the Discord, what the link to the Discord is. I'm being a little bit of a hard ass about this because this is our first year and we're still feeling our way along, but we are not letting people actually post to the Discord without registering for the convention. So the thing to do is to go to the Double Exposure website, register for the convention. You're going to get an email that says no reply at Envision Communities has sent you an email. It's going to say log in here. You're going to go through those steps. I acknowledge that an online convention requires so much more reading than showing up at a convention and following people on site. You've got that person has a badge and they are coming from that direction. I'm going to go get my badge down there. We don't have those physical cues. We have tried really hard to pay attention to the experience design and break it down. Astrid, by the way, shout out to Astrid, has been
absolutely
phenomenal for making me sit down and talk through each part of our text and say, what does this do? Who is reading it? What is it supposed to do? So just work your way. Trust me. I know, right? Talking about systems and high trust versus low trust. I understand that this is hopping into the river and pointing your feet downstream and trusting that I'm not going to run you into a rock. There was just a woo Astrid woo in the Twitch channel. I can't tell you guys how much she has anchored me through this process when I'm staring at a blank screen going, how do I even tell people what's in my head?
Right. But trust us, it's worth it, right? It's worth it to go through that process. First of all, first of all, importantly, registering is free. So just go do it. For Pete's sake, it takes, it doesn't take that long. And it gives you everything that you need to interact with this show, pretty much then gets sent to you. And yes, you've got to go through some reading at that point. But at that point, we can now assume that once you've read it, you'll understand how things are working around here. And we can, eliminate a level of questions that the few of us, kind of like on the top end administratively here, just don't have time to keep repeating over and over again, right? Like those questions are in the material that we've sent you, and so if you miss it, okay, we'll still answer it for you, but we're hoping to, eliminate some of that effort. It also means, for example, that when you've gone through that process, you've seen our code of conduct and that sort of thing as well, and signed off on that, so that we're, in part of that is also making sure the community lives up to the standards that we expect from an on-site show, of the Metatopia community. So it is relevant and important to us to get you all registered as part of the show, and that gives you access to everything for free once you've gone through that. It's worth your time to do it, please.
Exactly. I was going to say, for people that are like, but why do I have to register to see the Discord? Or why aren't you just putting all the information out there for me to find it? Some of it is specifically so that there's an accountability. And so if something goes wrong, we know where to start for troubleshooting it.
Right.
And if you get lost, there are plenty of us around on the Discord. There's a help desk channel where you can interact with that channel as soon as you get there. If you email us at m2020@dexposure.com, there are 3 of us monitoring that email address and jumping in and helping rescue people. And sometimes the answer is, did you read this document? And like, no insult, right? There's a ton of data flying at you. This is really complicated and weird. And there's no big board. There's no visual anchors for how to do this.
Right.
I will tell you the part that's been hardest for me is not having the comfort of I can just run to the bar and grab Darren if a panel blows up, or if my panelists are missing, I can't just go across the street and glare sternly through the bar window and be like, "You're supposed to be somewhere." Hey. This is all very weird for us too.
Right. Exactly.
Cool. So
we debated for a while whether or not one of the rooms in the Discord was going to be Darren's office at the bar, right? Was going to whether in fact we were actually going to just put a picture of Nancy up there so that you would know where to go to ask questions. But in the end, we decided not to take her name in vain that way. So.
Not without her permission.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
For people who don't know, who's Nancy?
Nancy is the most vital part of any double exposure convention. Nancy is the head bartender at the Morristown Hyatt, and she is absolutely indispensable to everything that goes on at that show. She's smarter than any of us, and she completely runs the entire operation. So. And if you can't find one of us, you can leave a message with her is the best part for it, because she knows all of us and we all adore her. So you can always just say, I
can't believe that actually works.
It completely works.
It's
unbelievable, but it completely works, yes.
So the help desk channel on the Discord serves as that repository for now. If you need to leave one of us a message, help desk is the right place to do it. While we're talking about the Hyatt, there have been a lot of conventions that have had just massive struggles with their spaces. People in the Twitch channel are shouting out Nancy's best bar lady ever. Awesome. Nancy rocks.
Absolutely.
She's amazing. The Hyatt has every step of the way worked with us, been collaborative. When we actually made the call to cancel Metatopia in person, there was an entire do you want to do a smaller event? Do you want to try to figure this out? And we were like, and they were like, okay, before you answer, don't make us take your money. Please stay home, be safe. And it was so they were.
Our relationship with that hotel has always been phenomenally good, and it continues to be so even with all of this. I can't wait to get back there because of all of the renovation and everything that they're doing. When we go back there, a sizable chunk of that hotel is going to be physically unrecognizable. And I'm kind of bummed that I'm missing seeing it actually happen. But on the other hand, I'm also kind of glad that I don't have to be there during all the construction that's actually happening. So.
I feel like we actually, in a weird way, got another silver lining in that everything is weird and upside down. And when we go back, our space is going to be weird and upside down, but we're going to be so glad to be there.
Right, exactly.
So the crying couch. For people that don't understand, once you get to the Discord, what the crying couch and the joyful couch are. In the lobby of the Hyatt, there is a sofa where people coming out of playtests land. And it is literally the place where one day I stood up off of it. Vinny gave me a hug and he goes, what is that? And I was like, oh, that's Whitney. And he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, and that's Sarah. And that one's Jason. Yeah, and he was like, wait, what? And I'm like, I've been cried on. It happens. And so
it's an incredibly comfortable and soft couch that as soon as you land on it, you immediately sink several inches in, right? Sort of thing. So it's
and so it's where the puppy pile and the emotional
right, exactly. If you've had a bad playtest, or even if you've had a great playtest and you're just freaked out by how awesome your playtest was, it's where you go to kind of just decompress from the tremendous stress of having your game playtested. In some cases by people you've been a fan of your entire life has just playtested your game and given you tremendous advice or whatever. So it's kind of the place to recover from that. So the couch simultaneously has a crying portion and a joyous portion depending on exactly what you need it for and to be. But in theory, I think it's supposed to hold 3 or 4 people, and on a regular basis, it holds 15. So it's
It is also the warmest spot in the hotel because you get 15 people into 6 linear feet, and it's just So when you get to the Discord, join us on the Crying Couch. It's also where the weird conversations happen at 2 a.m. and where so if we were to mash up first edition this and first edition that, what would the babies look like?
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about the Game Design Lounge and Jason's vision for that, because I'm really excited by that.
Sure.
One of the things our community is sorely missing is Google+. A bunch of analog game designers all hung out on Google+ and talked design theory. That folded in April 2019, and doing this over Twitter is not the same. So Jason has created this community of game designers that talk about design theory regularly. And we have replicated that in the Game Design Lounge. So it's a voice chat and there's a text chat. We invite you to pop over and jump into the conversation. I am going to suggest that if you jump in there and it's too chewy and you're just like, holy crumbs, I have no idea what's happening here, pop out to one of the individual groups. So there's a LARPing area, there's a board and card game area, there's an RPG area. So if you want to talk more generally, some higher level, like some broader stuff, while in the design lounge they're getting into the weeds, that's a good place to go.
I believe that Jason will be seeding those groups with like particular topics. I think, and anytime the chat does slow down, I think he's like plans to go in every couple of hours and be like, okay, the subject of the day is blah, is whatever or whatever, and to attempt to start those. So I expect to see some really entertaining conversations out of some of his prompts, basically.
Absolutely, and it's a place for people to jump in and to feel like they are part of the conversation in a very just jump in with both feet.
Right.
Oh, the current conversation in the Game Design Lounge is how to start a business in game design as inspired by panel D001. So,
well, there you go. We're off to a start.
Yep.
It's a crackling good start. Okay.
All right. We're at 10 minutes. If the audience could, 12 minutes, but close enough. If the audience has any questions, we're here to answer them. Darren, what is your favorite ridiculous Metatopia story? Thing that just took your breath away with its sheer awesomeness or sheer weirdness?
Wow. I'm going to say for sheer awesomeness, I'm gonna tell a tale out of school about another designer who his first I got to see his first high test, basically, and his first high test I was participating in, and the other two people who were on his first high test were Ken Hite and Fred Hicks. And so, we're just kind of like sitting around in there talking. When he came into the room, he did not apparently, like, nobody had told him who was involved in it, or he had somehow like blanked that out, because he came in the door and like stopped, and kind of like looked at it and was like not really sure he was going to finish coming into the room, right? With his. And he handed out copies of his game. He sucked it up and handed out copies of his game, and each of us, people were sitting there reading quietly, and the first maybe page of it was just fiction set in his game universe, and we were all like, no, that's not what we're here for. Everybody just kind of like chucked that page away. And then each of us started to read the rules, and you could see in order how fast each person read, right? Because like there was a piece of brilliance in his design that we hit in order for just popped our heads up and looked at each other saying, Did you see this? Did you, this is a real thing. This is and watching those designers get that excited, right? Like seeing this collection of designers get that excited about a new designer's new cool thing was an experience that like everybody I think should get a chance to see at one point, right? Because they were so like, he literally set that room of like designers on fire with this idea, and everybody's just like, oh my god, wait, what? This is fabulous, and started talking to him about it. And it was just, he was so scared when it started, right? And then like by the time it had, we were 10 minutes into it, it was just this amazing collection of people throwing ideas around about this, fabulous design. So it's the sort of thing that can only happen at Metatopia, right? There's no other place to do that.
That reminds me to bring up the IGDN and the sponsorships and
yes.
the work.
Things that only happen with us.
Right. So we coordinate with the IGDN to do sponsorships for marginalized game designers. And one of the coolest things is watching designers come in that are like, I'm sure I belong here, or I've jumped into the fray, and watching them get pulled into the Metatopia community, and watching them really flourish.
Right.
And I think that people should look up the IGDN. The work that Camden is doing as their diversity coordinator is just absolutely stellar. He never slows down. He never stops hustling on their behalf. There is a cohort this year that has industry mentors. They're attending panels. They've gotten sponsorships to spend money going and working on their game design while the world is on fire around us. And it's just, it's amazing to see.
And the program has just now been around long enough, right, that like the people who have been through it are now mentoring other people.
Yep.
And that's a beautiful thing to watch. I mean, that's the system working the way it's supposed to, right? Is like seeing people who you saw as, you know, like brand new designers coming in 2 or 3 years ago who are now themselves these, you know, wily old veterans basically, and like bringing in new designers themselves. It's wonderful to see. So.
Designers Talk Fun on, I think it's Friday night, is 2 IGDN sponsorship winners from the past and two designers from out in the wild. And I'm so excited for that particular session because it's just going to be a lot of fun.
Yes.
For years, part of the foundation of Dreamation was the indie game explosion, which was non-D&D, non-Pathfinder RPGs. And unlike with Darren's disdain for the word indie as a description for a school of game design, if we just put a asterisk on it that says not D&D, not Pathfinder, and put almost everything else in that bucket in the short term, the indie game explosion was this anchoring thread for Dreamation for a number of years, shepherded by Kat and Michael Miller, who are the hidden, invisible fairy godmother and godfather of Metatopia. The convention would not exist without them because they anchored the somewhat contentious and very enthusiastic RPG community that has grown up with Dreamation. Where was I going with this? So for years, I tried to tease that community out to like get them at board and card tables and be like, come on, there's design things that you could learn out here. Come and play. Right. And it was like having a colony of semi-feral cats in a laundry room. They would get up to the edge of the conference center, look around and go, and back up. Right. And so I would try to tempt board and card players into the conference center and be like, no, what they're doing in story games right now is so cool. You could be using this at the game table. Like, come and learn about these safety tools. Come and learn about this language that is evolving. And so I had these two groups of these two colonies of cats that coexisted peaceably. And there were a couple of diplomats that wandered back and forth, but I couldn't get any mass movement. So I guess it was 2 or 3 years ago, I bop over to the board and card game area, which just ends up segregated because it's different player bases and whatnot at Metatopia. And I realized... Right,
and they need their library space and everything there for it, which is
So, I head over to board and card from the lobby, and I stop because I'm like, did I end up in the wrong place? Because the first 4 tables had, you know, some crunchy RPG people and some, like, feelsy story games people at the board and card and I'm like, they're talking.
Right, exactly. Metatopia had a lot to do with that, I think, for it, because that was the place that they could interact or found themselves on panels with each other, right? Like on a level. I mean, I very much wanted originally Dreamation to have more of a panel track, particularly to encourage that, and that didn't really work out. But like that discussion helped make Metatopia what it was, or what it is, right? As a specific kind of channel of community interaction that a lot of large conventions have a problem with getting their communities to talk to each other, their sub-communities to interact and talk to each other.
Exactly. And so for me, that was my moment where I was just like, okay, don't breathe too hard, but it's working. It's doing the thing we want it to do.
Exactly.
The other moment where I just was like, okay, this is exactly, I'm going to name him. Sorry, Jason. the Saturday that I popped upstairs and ran into Jason Morningstar in the lobby looking kind of hangdog, and I'm like, what's up? And he goes, I didn't get players for my LARP this morning. And I stopped moving and I went, wait, what? And he said, yeah, you asked us to send players to go play with designers that they'd never heard of before. And I've been doing that all week and telling people that they need to go play with somebody that they've never met. But then I didn't have any players for my game. And I was like, holy crap. Like 20 LARPers went to go play things with designers that they'd never met, and now I have to go find 20
and now we have to go
people
track some more to bring them back for Jason. Right, exactly.
But the fact that the community bought in and was like, I want this, I want to go and do this, and I'm enthusiastic about these weird things that may never make it to market, but that's not the point. This is somebody who's really earnestly trying. And the community was like, oh, you need us to go be heroes for these game designers? We're in.
Right.
And it was perfection.
Now, see, the answer for that would be go down to board gaming and pull a bunch of people from board gaming for his LARP, right? So
right.
I need you to go to your first LARP, and it's being run by Jason Morningstar. So head on upstairs.
Right, and they're like, what? I'll trust you, but what? Who?
What? Right? Yeah, exactly. So.
All right, so we're at 3 minutes. Tell us where to find you on social media, and if someone wants to hire you to edit things or wrangle a panel track, where do they find you?
You can get me, well, first of all, immediately you can go here to the Looking for Work, because I'm in that list as much as anybody else for it. Or you can always reach me at darrenwatts@yahoo.com. So.
Awesome. In the Twitch channel, I have someone asking about sell sheets, and I will have people post sell sheets in the Looking for Work, or in the self-promotion. There's a
self-promotion. Yeah, there's a self-promotion thing. Right.
I will have.
Oh yeah, for my self-promotion, I also have a podcast that I am promoting over there as well for it. So please do check out. I mean, you may have seen it on the advertising going by here for this, but Explain This Comics Guys is my ongoing podcast about weird elements of comic book history. So.
And I am on Twitter as @Avonelle. You can friend me on Facebook if you tell me who you are first. Be prepared for what you're getting. I'm a cranky, overly feelsy New Yorker, and all of my social media is full contact. You can also follow us at DE_gaming on Facebook. And I think that's also, actually it's _exposure at Facebook and DE Gaming at, we'll caption the video afterwards, and I'll drop it into the Discord. Great branding, right?
Right.
And the Double Exposure website is where you go to find out about upcoming events.
Absolutely.
Any other thoughts or anything else that you want to add?
Just delighted to have you all here. Thanks for coming to the show. Thanks for bearing with us under these very unusual circumstances, and keeping the community going and keeping the show going. This means a lot to a lot of us here. So we're delighted to have you. I hope you enjoy your weekend.
Reach out if you need help. We're here.
Absolutely.